man got the tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip. Okay, hit
it! Hey there, everyone. How's it going? Tonight, Jason's going to be joining us any minute. We're just waiting for him to get back on his computer. Kind of just have a impromptu show tonight. So I think it's going to be Jason and I tonight. And we're going to talk about some studio scale stuff. It's pretty much all I think about right now. That's all I talk about and collect. And, I still collect some stuff, but not as much as I do studio scale stuff. It's pretty much the only thing I'm doing. I'm making models, I'm buying kits, and yeah. So I just thought we'd come on, Jason and I would talk about some of the things we have going on our table. This week I was kind of hoping to have John Simmons on for one morning show, but the day I was going to do it, I have to work now. So, and I'm not going to be able to make group therapy this week. I have to work again Friday and Saturday night because right now my job is crazy, but here we are. So, just wanted to Cothree's there right from the beginning. He was early. He was way early. The collector, Andrew Napoli, John Hanavan. Hi, Robin. How's it going? Hopefully you've started some tinkering with some models. Well, we're just going to go ahead until Jason joins us. So I guess where should I start? We're going to talk about some kits that are out there too, that, progress pictures of stuff that I've done, stuff that I want to do, stuff that Jason's working on. What Jason's working on, I'm going to be doing next. So I'm excited to try that. Usually my setup is turned a little differently, but I still have all those boxes over in my room from the water heater breaking. So yeah, it's different scenery. I like changing it up anyway. So this is a pretty decent one. There he is. I thought you fell asleep.
No.
Hold
on a second. Let me just do my audio.
Good, brother.
How's it going?
Going good. Got a couple people, 13. The Bowmans are here. Stuart Brown's here. Isn't that Stuart, the guy who's doing the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah, I think so, right?
Hey, Stuart, how's it going? Chris Lord, Aaron. Hey, Aaron. Wow. Isn't it late where you're at? You all good?
No, I can hear you, but just give me a sec.
Okay.
We can keep talking. I'm just in a second.
So, I'm going to just put some pictures up. So, I found these pictures. Well, I mean, this one's pretty well known. But I don't know that a lot of people know that there's been some pictures with other model makers in. I think a lot of them, right?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. You hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. So, I guess they took a big photo shoot with all these models. It wasn't just George Lucas, right? There was Lauren Peterson and who else?
There's Lauren, Joe Johnston, Grant McCune. I think they did the whole group of them. I think 6 or 7 of them.
I actually found a picture today where they were a different angle. Like it was shooting from George's left-hand side. And it showed it's pretty cool. It shows Home 1 and the other Mon Calamari ship that has a really cool paint job. I wish I'd have saved that one, but I didn't. I found it on Pinterest. But yeah, Benjamin, you guys got a bunch of model and weathering books. Yeah, that's where I started looking. I started looking at I looked at John Simmons stuff basically first, but I started also looking at tank painting, the weathering for tanks, that kind of started me really like thinking about how things were done, paint wise. So, so what do you want to get into first? You want to talk about? Let's talk about your thing first. No.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right,
Yeah.
let me pull that up and just give a little background, Jason, while I'm pulling it up.
So going back, it's been almost a year now. I had purchased an ATST off of Lee Ralph, and it was a complete scratch built from the ground up. Everything about it had original parts, and what I did was when it arrived, it wasn't completed. And I went into, I talked about this before on the show, but now we're going to get into it a little bit more in detail. So me and Lee had worked it out where I was under the understanding or the knowledge that this needed to have some work. Not a lot. It wasn't major work, just some small greeblies and a few pieces. And then in addition to that, a paint job. The thing that sort of struck me was, although it wasn't a large number of bits and pieces or greeblies that needed to go on, there was really no reference. And a lot of images online, because they were like kits or resin kits or casts, didn't have a lot of things that matched or things that lined up. So it was really hard to sort of look at something, sort of like when you're putting something together and you look at the picture on the box and you're kind of copying. I couldn't really do too much of that. And I was trying to do it without too much reference purposely. And what that led to was eventually, just like when you work on any model kit, you start to get really used to the parts you're working with, and you start to get really familiar and intimate with the piece that you're working on. And I was able to start recognizing, oh, well, this piece comes from this kit, and this piece comes from that kit. And I also had to buy a few more kits to finish it off as well. I mean, it was sent to me about 95% complete, but I still had to gather together a few more things. And in doing so, I just went down this rabbit hole of like researching the thing inside and out. So once I got to that point, after about 6 months of sitting with this thing day in and day out, I was able to pretty much recognize and figure out the bits and pieces. And after doing that, I decided, okay, now I'm going to scratch build one myself and basically copy what I have in front of me. And because I had the original one scratch built in front of me, I was able to utilize that as reference and start on it on my own. So that's where I am now. I'm about a week and a half, 2 weeks into it. I spent about 2 months acquiring a lot of the parts and pieces for it first. And then this is some pictures of that Chris is going through where I'm just scratch building the head out of 0.006 styrene sheets. So that's just being cut to shape and detail. And then me just sort of practicing a little bit of layout as Chris is showing you on the mouse. So yeah, these pictures are a little bit out of order, but we were just kind of going through some work in progress.
Yeah, I'm just doing work in progress, and then at the end there's more like together pieces, and then the model kits you sent me as well.
Yeah, so this is the top part of the head, right up here, and the coloring is just me priming them. I use different tones of primer just so I can have a better understanding of what I'm piecing together when and where. Like, because this isn't glued down. This is just me giving like a placeholder for the time being. But this is the top of the head. These are the pieces that are primed. And it also allows me to get a better understanding of the scale, since I'm scratch building the head, that I can say, okay, lay the pieces down and say, all right, this is correct. This is how big or how small it needs to be. And then if I need to change it up, I can just always recut it as needed. Yeah.
I never thought to use different color primers to kind of separate it a little bit. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, I started doing it, especially like with this piece where the head itself, the box of the head, is basically just all sheets of styrene and pieces of plastic. It just gave me a better idea of knowing like how big or small to gauge it. So that's why I sort of started that on this. So that's
and like
that.
these are all model kit parts here, right?
Yep, these are all separate model kit parts. Yep.
And then this here, that is as well. Did you have to trim this off of something, or is that the way the whole thing came?
Nope, that's trimmed a little bit. And if you get the cast kit, it's trimmed significantly. That extra little piece on the side with the rivets, you see like it has a little dash on top. Yeah, that right there where your hand is. Go down a little more. Go down.
Down here?
No, Good. Yeah. So right there. For some reason on the casket, this piece is missing.
This
That
piece
right
here.
there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's not one piece there. That's not all one piece. There's a piece underneath,
Yeah.
and then this shape on top. Is that what you're saying?
No, this is all one piece, but for some reason in the cast kits, I don't know
Oh,
why, but it's a little bit smaller. And you'll see I have a head from a cast kit next to a real head in some of the
yeah, I
pictures
have
as we
that
go
down
through, and
lower.
you'll see some of the differences.
Yeah,
So this is interesting. Me and Chris had a few chats about this. So the foot
yeah.
of the ATST is actually is it AMT or Myrtle? What was the brand for the Vader tie?
Ertl, Ertl. I think it is Ertl. Yeah,
Myrtle. Yeah, so they repurposed their own models, which was interesting. So after the
yeah.
Vader
That's
tie was
cool.
released, in stores after A New Hope, they basically took their own model kits, which was a Vader tie, and this is actually the bottom half of the Vader tie, which is the ATST's foot. So you have to sort of cut this out, cut it to shape, and then you add a bunch of greeblies. This right here is
So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 pieces total, believe it or not.
So basically, where your fingers are at, that's where the cockpit is. That's where Vader sits, facing towards
Correct.
your
Well, that'd be
hand.
the bottom side, but that's
Yeah,
exactly
bottom.
the cockpit. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I
That's
never.
exactly.
That was shocker to me. I never knew that, and
And
I
for
was
the
like,
fun of it, I threw a pick in here.
yeah, I saw it. Where you trace it out. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then these are all model kit parts. Like these cannons are off the flak. Is that the third? That's
I
not
think
38.
they're in a couple different ones, right?
Oh yeah, they're in a bunch, but in the
So this is
one
just an
flak.
amalgamation of a bunch of flak kits and the
Yep.
German Panzer kits and things like that. This was a little tricky to get together.
Was it?
I had to, yeah. So what I did was when I was doing this, I just used light dabs of glue. So if I needed
Mm-hmm.
to pull it apart without using a reversal agent, I could just pop it off. And then
Yeah.
once I lined everything up to where I felt comfortable, um, that's when I finally like. And this right here in this picture, it isn't fully complete. It still has a few more pieces that extend off of it that need to go on. But again,
Okay.
I had a great resource. Keep in mind that as I'm building this, in front of me, I'm looking at a Lee Ralph piece that was scratch built.
I think maybe
So
when I build mine, you should send me your Lee Ralph piece, and I can use it as reference.
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, Lee Ralph. I mean, honestly, he's a great builder. He really is. Like, I don't know. I marvel at his ability to ID things, and the total, like, what I want, the thoroughness of his building. Like, it's every step is thought out so far in advance. It's just, I would definitely buy something from him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More details of the gun. And another thing, so this little side shield, I sort of copied the way it was built up as well. I just liked, we had some reference images after the fact, Chris, that we had access to, the ones that you have as well. So there was those to reference. There were some things that were completely scratch built that you didn't realize that kind of looked like model parts. So a lot of this I basically emulated from that, and then also some of the reference images as well, based on what angles you can see and can't see. But this is a fun little piece to put together.
So how many pieces are in this? Okay, so there's one here, right?
You got
There's one there. Is this is the same piece right here with this little tip? There's
no,
two
they're
of these,
separate.
right? Oh, they're separate.
Yep, there's 1, 2.
How many of
so
these
in
cannons
total,
are in there?
So in total, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Right here in complete, there's about 14 pieces. 15 as we can see.
15 model kit pieces in this little cannon.
And about 2 or 3 of them are brass tubes as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe. But wow. Oh, this is one right here. This is on slave 1. That's on slave 1. Yeah, this is underneath. There's two sets of these on slave 1. Yeah, the funny thing is, so many of these model kit parts were used over and over and over again.
And over again.
Yeah.
And that's where you get, so that deep dive, the reason why I spent so much time in this one particular model is I have other models that are scratch built, but some of them are idealized, meaning that they might be a concept piece. As you guys know, I collect concept works, and they don't exist on screen. Okay, this is the first one that was built entirely from original parts, start to finish, and as a screen use piece. So I was able to use it and basically emulate or copy it, verbatim, like mirror image of it. So it was great for reference, but it also gave me a better understanding, like Chris said, of being like, and Chris, you noticed this over conversations through the months. I'm like, oh, well, this is hair, and this was repurposed to this, and this was used on that. And you start to really learn how much they repurpose the same kits over and over and over again.
And then they'll throw one crazy piece in that is on a rare kit that either isn't made anymore.
You just can't find anymore.
Like, all right, let's just throw this Intex piece in there somewhere. Screw it. We'll screw these guys 40 years down the line. They got to pay $1,500 for this model kit if they want to finish it. They didn't think that way, but well, you know what I'm saying.
And Stu, you're not wrong. It is clinical, and some of the stuff, just for the fun of it, like I traced on paper just to like get proper measurements and get a feel for it. Like I would hold a piece of just like printer paper up to it, trace the indentation, measure it out with a ruler, and then layer thinner sheets of styrene, and then build up from there. And it really was a good training tool.
I think you're a little even more clinical than I am. Not just
I like to go in and I like to go in and be a little bit more precise. I'll cut a couple times to make sure it's like perfectly rounded or perfectly squared if it needs to be. I'll sand for a little while to make sure things are rounded if they need be. And then even like the position and placing, I'll like give enough glue so it holds, but enough where I can pull it apart until I finally have it laid out, and then I'll like really put it together.
So David here asks a question: what type of primer do you guys use? We have been talking about this a lot lately, David, and everybody has a primer that they like. What we like, you may not like, and what other people like, I don't like.
Because even we differ, Chris.
Yeah, you and I differ. Even you use Rust-Oleum, and I actually use VHT engine block primer, and when I spray it on, it looks like thick. It looks thick, and you think, oh shit, I lost all the detail. But then as it dries, it shrinks, and I lose no detail. Okay, now this stuff, even sanding it off is tough. Okay, and I found that it sticks to models a little better, because I've run into a lot of instances where I didn't get all the mold release off of it, and then it would bubble up, and I was like, gosh. When that happens, I can't tell you how many times I curse and scream and get aggravated. Like, it drives me nuts. I call you and I start bitching about it. I do. I mean, every model has happened to me at some point. No matter how much I scrub it with soapy water, I'll take a scrubber brush and get on every little piece. There's still bubbles up sometimes, and it drives me insane. Which is another reason why I'm like, I don't know that I want to do kits that much anymore. I want to do, stuff like this, scratch build.
Yeah, scratch build is easy to prime. So David, I use always, even though I've been sort of experimenting with different techniques, I've always used a mixture of Airbrush Primer, which I always use a black base. That I always use, and or not always, but I've been using it for quite some time now. And then I'll do Rattle Can Primer, which is a Rust-Oleum, and it's usually like a wet sand one. I know they have like the filler sandable ones, but that tends to stipple a little bit and give you like those little sort of concrete surface looks. But yeah, I like a little mixture of both Rattle Can and the smoothness of the Airbrush Primer.
I'd like to know how we're hurting your brain. That's very interesting. I'm curious. All right, so I'll keep going with some pictures. I have to know, what is this thing, Jason?
Okay, so remember we were talking about, guys, one thing we're going to get into, because me and Chris had talked a lot about this stuff over the past few weeks. So as I started to build this second one, this, even though it isn't comprised of a lot of pieces per se, it's comprised of a lot of kits. The kit list, or the amount of kits needed to build a screen accurate scratch build ATST it's astounding, overwhelming, and expensive. So I found this shortcut of what I've been doing basically is their sellers both on eBay, internet shops, kind of like if you're a Hot Toys collector, like Monkey Depot, right? Where you want like parts and pieces when people like, strip a figure and sell it for parts. Well, people will do that with model kits. They'll basically strip models down and sell just like tree A, spruce B, whatever it may be. And what I started doing is with the tanks for 20, $30, I'd buy those. But the car ones, it's a catch-22 with the cars because the car kits are used on so many different models across the board. If you drop anywhere from 100 to 250 on a car kit, it's not that it's not worth it because you can reuse those kits 5 times over. But for
Especially
this
Ferraris. The Ferrari.
yeah, especially the Ferraris.
Yeah.
But for this particular piece, I didn't want to be into it for 2-3 grand. So I was trying to build it for as cheap as possible. So what I did with both the tank and the car parts was I specifically went in and as many as I could, I went and bought just the trees, that had those pieces on it, which we'll go through a couple for anywhere between like $10 and $15 of free shipping or $10 and $15 of $5 shipping. And then this is an example. So this goes on the base, like sort of like what would be the ATST's chest. And you have those 2 panels that you see like on the back of the Biker Scout's bike, the flat panels.
Flaps.
They kind of come up on his chest as well. They attach to this. So this was another example where you only need this one piece in the whole, in the entire kit. You only need this one piece of the ATST. So rather than spending $180 on that kit, what I was looking for is an as-is kit, meaning like just an old kit that was junked or somebody built or started to build and missing parts, missing pieces, missing instructions. You get them real cheap. And since I only needed this one part, I was able to get it for $20 versus spending $180 for the whole kit. And all I needed was this one piece. That's why I put the picture in of this as an example.
Yeah, I definitely got to start going that route. I'm buying too many kits and my shelf is filling up. I like having the kits, but I also would rather save $100 some
I do too.
on a kit that I don't need.
I agree. I love having the kits too. And like you had mentioned, you can repurpose them or reuse them for so many other things. And this particular build, though.
And if you decide to, say, scratch build your own whatever concept piece, like I plan on doing a concept piece on my own, and I'm buying all these kits just so I can use them on to make my own. You know what I mean? So
yeah, this is a good question, Andrew.
Yeah.
So me and Chris just talked about this as well recently. So
yeah, we did.
When I was showing some of these images, Chris was like, "Oh, that's interesting that you're painting them or priming them and then assembling them." So I personally, with scratch building something, not that I've scratch built a lot, but like when I just did my A New Hope tie, and now that I'm doing the ATST, I like painting or priming the pieces first and then assembling. But it all depends on what layer you're at. So if I'm doing a primer or a second coat of primer, I'll do that prior to assembly. And then there's certain pieces that once they're assembled, then you'll do another one last coat, a soft coat of primer. But I personally tend to paint first, as you're seeing in these images, and then prime second. If it's something that's heavily weathered, then I'll assemble everything and then do the top layer of paint, like the color needed, and then the weathering. But I'll do that once it's fully assembled.
So me, on the opposite spectrum, I plan out how I'm going to build things and put pieces, most of it, like a lot of it together, and then prime it. Because what I've run into, and maybe it's the primer I use, I don't know, but when I glue things when they're primed, they don't stick together. It's like paint. Most of the time when you glue painted pieces, they won't stick either. I would love to prime all these pieces and then glue them on. That'd be awesome, but I'm going to try that out I'm going to try that next with some of the paints, the primer that you had said. And Far from Death, I see mostly people priming parts before assembling them, then do the paint when assembled. Yeah,
that's what I usually do.
I'm going to try that. It's probably much more thorough of a paint job. You know what I mean? It's more.
Well, the reason why I do it, I feel like it's more thorough, but also if I ever need for any reason to pull a piece off or to reassemble something, or I want to add something, whatever it may be, when everything's done individually, it's less damage. If you're reversing anything, there's less damage to be done, and then you can put something back cleanly.
Like I'll prime, say, one piece and about to if it's not gonna get painted right, I'll prime it, and then what I'll do is I'll like put it in place and pencil it, and then I'll sand away some of the primer or scratch some of the primer so that there's plastic on plastic being welded together. I don't know if that's better. I don't know if it's not. So it works for me for right now. But I do agree. I probably would want to prime it first. See, like these are kit pieces that aren't primed or anything. These are from model kits. What are these
Yeah,
from?
so these are pre-primed.
Do you remember
These
what
are in a
these are
couple different kits. Yeah,
Okay.
this is the 312B that I pulled them from, but they're in a couple
Okay.
different Ferrari kits. I think they're in the 312T as well. And maybe a few others. I think like the Ford F1. I could be wrong. And then
Well,
even these
most of the Ford cars all have a lot of the same engine parts, and most of the
Yeah.
Ferrari cars have a lot of the same engine parts as well. They just have different other things that go along with it. They just have the same engine, though. You know.
Yeah, and
So
then those little round parts you'll see everywhere too.
Yeah, they're on slave.
Yeah,
These are on
those are
Slave
in a
One.
ton of things.
They're on the
Yeah.
tips of Slave One rings. It's funny how you'll do a piece like you're doing the ATST, and I did Slave One, and like I see a piece, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's on Slave One. Like it's in my brain how all the parts that I assembled. You know.
Mm-hmm. So this is just me doing some additional priming.
Yep.
There you go. So, all right. So here's a good example. So this is when the one I got from Lee came in. This is as I started to build it up and sort of mess around with it. When I first received it, it wasn't able to stand on its own. It's only because it had an older stop motion body. So it has a bar going down the bottom, which you guys can see in the image. But I was able to work through this and actually get it to stand on its own as well. But you can see here, there's a pre-assembled head. And then also a kit cast head, and there's a few differences.
Yeah.
And definitely a difference in size as well. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of differences.
Especially
I also have this kit. And I've had it for a year or so and never did anything with it, but I think I'm going to build it and probably sell it. And then I'm going to build a scratch built one for myself.
Yeah, it's a fun one, man. It's definitely a fun build for sure.
What's this part, Jason? Do you know this part off the top of your head? I feel like that's on Slave One too.
Yeah, that's on the Slave One, both on the left and the right side. You see it on both sides. It's doubled up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's on a couple of the Ferraris, a couple of the cars.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these are the same parts. It's funny how they repurposed a lot. They must have had like tons of kits, like 50, 60 of the same kit. You know what I mean? It's bizarre.
And a lot of things, they just kind of look like they pulled, and if it fit in place, they used it. You know, there was like one of those things where it wasn't a lot of rhyme and reason initially.
Yeah, like when we get to my ion cannon, I'll show there's a part on the ion cannon where you just kind of like use your creative juices and just put parts where they fit and make them look good, and I enjoyed that. I remember Jason Eaton talking about like a lot of people reached out to him and said they enjoyed it, and that was a lot of fun to just weren't following reference. You just kind of were like doing your own thing,
Yeah.
This looks phenomenal. Is this Lee's?
That's Lee's, yeah. And this is what I was using for reference. So as you can see, like you can't just straight up like trace the overall length and measurements of it, but you can get a general idea and then lay it down, match it up, things like that. So it was definitely, and then also having to do some of the assemblage and add some of the group leads and other parts to it. It gave me a feel for working with it, right? For working with the scratch built ATSD. So once I got comfortable with it, and this is another thing we talk about often because this has been asked of us before, where it's like people have this, what if I mess up? What if I do this? What if I do that? Well, that's the best thing about models. You can't, not that you can't mess up, you can, but actually, like the only thing that you can really do that's unreversible is if you cut something too small. Like if it's a donut piece that you have to snip or cut, and then maybe you just have to go buy another one. Hopefully it's not an expensive piece. But other than that, if it's like paint, people use mineral, people use isopropyl alcohol, and 200%. I actually use graffiti remover. I'll put, a couple ounces in a little, Tupperware bin, something that you like put your lunch in, put the pieces in there, use a toothbrush and strips it right down.
Yeah, I've done that.
Glue wise. Yeah.
I've actually
I use a reversal agent.
Well, you're talking about also like if you paint it. Oh no, you were talking about. Okay, sorry. I thought you were talking about something else.
No, both. Just like if you're painting, gluing, like when people go, what happens if I mess up? I mean, there's so much stuff that you can undo.
Well, the first time I did this, my sandcrawler, I cleaned all the pieces and then I sprayed it with primer and it just bubbled. Like it didn't barely. Like when the primer doesn't go on right, you can actually, when it dries, you can actually rub it off with your finger. It just doesn't bond at all.
Like beads up, like a
beads up,
almost like a water, like a
yeah,
what's it called, raincoat, like a raincoat.
Yeah, like kind of like oil on water, And I wrote to Randy Cooper who made the kit, and he said you could use acetone to take it off of it. Now, acetone is an extremely corrosive thinner. And I was like, "Are you sure about that?" He says, "No, it's fine. It'll take it." But then I tried it on another bottle, and it didn't take it so well. Like it ate away a lot of the detail, and I had to scratch some of the extra detail back on it. So don't use acetone. Don't use that.
Yeah, I think, and if you don't want to use any harsh chemicals like a stripping chemical, a stripping cream, I think isopropyl alcohol is a good one because that you can sit for a couple hours and it won't damage the plastics.
Some people, I've also read that something like Simple Green that breaks down oil, let it sit in that for little bit diluted, sit in that overnight or something like that, and then scrub it. Let's answer a couple questions here. David's asking what would be the best model to scratch build for a beginner. Simplicity and X, that is a tough one.
So the thing with this question being a two-part, that's where it gets tricky, David, because if you're going for simplicity, like the ATSD, for example, I think is one there's some tricky parts to it, but when you're talking about expense, this will run you a couple thousand easy. But then you have like the TIE Bomber, which is probably a little bit cheaper, but can be a lot more complex. So
there's a lot of one of the other on those wings.
Yeah, one or the other makes it tricky. So simplicity-wise, I can think of a few off the top of my head, like the Jedi training remote, right? As long as you can get the grid drawn out properly, that one's somewhat more of a simpler piece. However, expense-wise, you need so many of the same pieces over and over and over again. You're spending at least $1,000 on buying 8 of one kit, 6 of another kit. I don't know. What do you think, Chris? I mean,
none of them. I mean, they're all pretty intricate and expensive to do. There's
for scratch building.
If you're scratch building, you're not talking cheap. You're really not. I thought when I did my my background ship, the first one, the Vosper ship, I thought, you know what, that don't look that complicated and doesn't look that expensive, but it started getting very expensive.
So it adds up quick.
Yeah, it adds up quick. And you're buying this Ferrari kit for $100 and this Ferrari kit. And then you got to buy 2 Vospers. And then, that's $100 right there. It added up a lot. And originally I thought it was going to be pretty simple and pretty cheaper, but it ended up not being. So there really isn't any that I can think of. I'm sure there might be something really basic and really easy, but nothing that I know of.
And this is subjective. There's some amalgamations of like people who do scratch build and then add some 3D parts or vice versa.
Yeah.
But I just find that to be like, unless you absolutely have to, which I've done before, if you're going to do 3D, go 3D or resin. If you're going to do scratch build, go scratch build. Like, don't do 50-50 because it's not worth the time of mine, in my opinion.
Okay, so maybe, that's not necessarily true because look at Jason Eaton's builds. He uses a lot of 3D parts and he uses kit parts. So it's kind of an amalgamation of both. Whereas,
but like I said, Ralph, it's super subjective.
It's all up to you. You know what I mean? And then Lee Ralph scratch builds everything, like every hull, he does it from flat styrofoam.
Everything from vac forming to
Yes. Denture.
So this was
alcohol.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works as well. So this was just to give you guys an idea when we were talking about the Vader tie, because
Yeah.
it gives it more perspective. Talking about it is one thing, physically seeing it, like, oh, that's a miniature Vader tie. Oh, it is
Yeah.
the foot of the ATST. It gives a better understanding. And I just did a quick little outline to show like what areas you cut out. Just take a Dremel, and then what I use. I know a lot of people use like the different file sets. I use those for the more rounded or shaped ones. But 90% of the time when I'm sanding anything like in my hand, I just use an emery board, one that you would use to file your nails. I feel like it gives me the most control, and I get the best outcome on that.
Well, I mean, so this is the same Vader tie that I built for Cece for Christmas,
It is,
and I didn't even notice. I had no idea,
yeah.
none whatsoever. Let's go on a little bit. I know there's a question here from Death Star that's pretty long. Do these companies that make model kits mold each part to build a model from scratch, or do they use 3D scan a fully built model and figure out how the pieces go together? Not sure if that makes sense. Let's take the first part of that.
Makes
Companies,
sense.
do these companies make model kits for each part? Yes, some companies do. Like the same models. They're Mcquarrie X-wing. There's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of little pieces, and then they'll also make They also take 3D printed stuff and then make a mold of that and make resin kits out of it. And then you have Max Repley, who just prints everything in 3D. It prints it 3D. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the parts. It's like 3 or 4 pieces that go together. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a good answer because technically that's the truth. So you have some that are scratch built, and then from that scratch built they cast or make kits off of that. Then there's ones that are just 3D printed, and it all depends on how it's made, who's making it. But that's the best thing is right now with today's technology, you do have so many different options.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions, Jason. We're not going to get through any progress builds. Oh, it's good. I like it. I like when the our people watching interact. I had a lot of fun doing that the one night. What do you use for stands? Do you build your own? Most of the time I'm using a pan of ice security camera stand. It's a brand. It's called Pan of Ice. They make a couple different ones. They make a real thick, base, and they make thinner ones. And some of them have just the 1/4-20 screw on top, the male part, or some of them have a articulated ball that you can loosen and tighten to get like an angle or to get it straight, however you want it. It really depends on the build that you're doing. I've also done, I know Lee Ralph, he uses just an aluminum rod in a piece of wood, and then there's a small piece of wood inside the model that it keys right into, and it's usually pretty solid. That I used that. He did that on the Harrier that I just recently painted, and then I used that same technique on Cece's Vader tie. But all my other ones have pan of ice. It just depends. It depends what works best for you for each model, Like my Slave 1, I had a whole armature made by a machine shop, because it was extremely heavy and it had to be specific. There's an angle to it, to hold it so you can show it in flight. There's not one particular stand people use. A lot of people use different things.
I tend to go with either just a metal rod or, believe it or not, I do an acrylic rod. I have that on a few of my pieces too.
So yeah, I've never used acrylic rod yet.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any suggestion for beginning model kits, fan made or licensed? I have an AMT Vader tie to start. Start right there. That's
perfect.
Perfect. It'll give you a taste of what to expect and what to, learning how to sand and fill with putty and prime it and stuff, I jumped right in. I jumped in on the Augustini Falcon, which was a good thing for me to start on because it was the Augustini was a basically a paint put together by number. Like they had books that showed you exactly where each piece goes. And then I jumped to the Sandcrawler, which was that model you had to twist and heat up and glue and hold together with clamps so it would stay while the resin dries. And then Slave One's a whole nother beast. So that's a great start. Good start there, Andrew. That's a good place to start.
That is a good start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything that gets you here's my biggest thing. There's really no wrong or right kit.
No.
And as we were talking about a little while ago about people who mention, the fear of messing up, getting confident and comfortable is the best thing you can do. Because once you have the comfortable feeling of, okay, I got this, that I can mess up, I can repaint it, I can strip it, I can break it apart, something's glued on wrong, you can rip it off, you can repair something that snapped or broke, just fill it in with some putty and sand it down. Once you're confident with doing that, you can kind of tackle anything. So this looks a little messy, but this is just placement. So this is just me laying the pieces as to where they should go. That's why those little pieces are kind of tipped to the side. Nothing here is glued. It's just me placing things in situations.
Which is always a good idea. Like, always
get an idea of where you want to place it.
Figure it out how it's going to go together well.
It's like that measure twice, cut once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. David recommends Sci-Fi Studio Modelers kit to start, which is a good thing as well. That's a lot less pieces to glue on, a lot less small pieces. I mean, depends on the kit. It could be like 3 or 4 pieces that you like. Oh, you put the wings on, and then you put the ball on the wings. I've never had one, so I can't speak for it. But Stuart says the TIE Bomber was an easy first build. That I could see being a decently priced, easier thing to build. It's small and.
Well, that's what I mentioned. Remember, I said the TIE Bomber is.
I thought you said TIE Fighter. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was saying the TIE Bomber is something that I think expense-wise, maybe a little bit more complex than the ATSD, but expense-wise, I think is a reasonable one for a scratch build.
Yeah. I'd love you to pick your brain about the Augustini model at some point. I've only got 2 more shipments left before I have all the parts. Going to be my first scale model. Have you started it? Have you started putting it together from book 1? That's my question. It was a lot of fun to build that. It really was. That's a very well built model kit, and it tells you where to put everything. Well, no, I should take that back. There's a couple parts at the end where they kind of forgot to put the instructions on where they're supposed to go, and it's the same question is asked on D'Agostini model Facebook pages all the time. Where does this part and this part and this part go? Everybody asks. If they don't, I asked because I didn't know, because there's no instruction for 3 or 4 parts. I like how you did this. This is looking real good, Jason. I'm getting severely geeked out about doing this.
So this is the original one that I was using as reference. So this is part of disregard the background, but this is basically the SP letter in gray. SP letter in gray. I haven't applied the concrete yet, but the head I was working on with some of the weathering techniques, and the reason why you see like that random little chunk of black and some of the dripping is I was copying the reference images, the island reference images exact, and the Canon's giving them that burnt look. Using a little bit of a heat gun with some overspray and things like that. So this is scratch built, pretty much complete, with the exception of I hadn't put the clear tubes in yet. I haven't yet installed those, but this is about 95% done.
Did you say heat gun with some overspray?
Yeah, so you can. So if you spray enamel, right? Look I didn't take a better picture of the chin guns, but if you spray enamel and you take a heat gun to it immediately, it gives it that sort of like, because those are brass tubes. It gives it that rustic, like the paint adheres in a way where it almost looks like it's singed.
Oh, yeah, I can kind of see that.
Yeah, it gives it like this singed look on the metal. which looks like it's naturally shooting out, real, like, pardon the
If you can't
sound
tell,
effects.
I like this zoom feature, so I
Yeah.
use it a lot. That looks great. I got to remember that. I'm gonna be picking your
Yeah.
brain a lot when I do mine. Like, where are you putting your concrete? And it looks great, Jason.
So I feel like everybody has a thing. Like, you started off right out of the gate with being like really good technical with the build, with the lighting. This is missing a few pieces too. It wasn't 100% complete, but close to. But I remember, like, you would teach me stuff on building. I would teach you stuff on like painting, like opacity and mixtures and things like that. Because that's
I'm
always
like,
something
what
that's.
I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Opacity? I have no idea what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
so opacities will basically give you an idea of like how see-through a color is once you apply it.
Yeah.
So it's always best to mix something with a white base, depending on what you're working on.
So
So
let
what
me
I do is,
let me give an example quick. The Sandcrawler is where we're talking about specifically. The orange, that the speckled orange that's all over it. I was painting it on there, okay, and it wasn't showing very well. It was very dull, and you could almost see through it, okay, which ended up working out good because then Jason suggested I add some very light gray to it, which made it more, what's the word, Jason? Less transparent.
less transparent. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like I put that orange that had the gray in it in the middle so that it was real bright in the middle, and then the outsides looked faded, like it was a rusted
Starts to
away.
subtle. Yeah, it starts to
Yes.
subtle and almost
It
gives
worked.
that layer as if like weathering is sort of mending the layer of colors together. Yep.
Right. Yeah, it worked out great. If I had just gone with the less transparent orange, I don't think it would have looked as good. But because it's like faded around the outside a little bit, gives it a different look, a different feel.
So
So
one
yeah,
thing I always got into the habit of doing early on, and I started doing this with canvases versus models, was taking swatches of paint. So now what I'll do is I'll take a sheet of styrene, because styrene mimics a lot of like
Yep.
what the plastics, how they react to the colors. And
Yep.
that's when you know, like, okay, how much do I, primer mix with this, mix with that. So yeah, it's a good idea. This is before the full build and the paint. This is just me going along with, these aren't all in sequence, but this just gives you another idea of like, I had to build up the chin guns a little bit, but most of this was pretty much assembled when I received it as is and packed amazing for a fragile model like this. I got to say, it was also packed very, very well.
Yeah.
So another thing about the ATST, which is something I didn't know until I started deep diving on it, was because you only see it from one side going across the screen, right? They only built one side up in detail, and the other side they didn't put as much detail agreeably, because that side and on the leg, it's actually marked off camera, meaning like this is the side you're not going to see, so it's not going to be as dressed up. So if you want a screen accurate one, you're only going to build up. It would be the left side going that way. So that's why you see this little piece folding around the back, but on the other side you don't see it. No, on the lower part. Yep. See how that's missing? Where you just nope, on the head. Yeah. So go
Here.
down. Nope, right there. So see that's missing. On that side
it's missing this. Okay.
Yep. So that fold around and a few other greeblies are missing on the opposite side, because that's the side you don't see on camera. Now the chrome piece, the reason why I took a picture of before it was painted, so that was sort of the lost piece. Before images were taken of the piece, now it's completely like, it's just, there's barely nothing left of it. It's almost like a metal armature with a head. A lot of it's melted. A lot of the plastics are melted together from the stage lighting and what have you. But I had noticed, kind of like when you're in a very old house and take a picture off the wall and you see the outline of the picture, there was an outline of a piece. And I was like, wait a minute, this is too precise of a outline to just be coincidence or a bad paint job. So I had turned to somebody who has been very helpful with the resource, and they said, oh yeah, that piece actually fell off during production or filming, whatever. This is the piece you're looking for. So I had to go out, purchase the kit, and I wanted to be, again, a complete scratch build as you saw it on screen. So this originally existed on screen and then fell off either during or after production. So that came from the Ferrari 312B.
Something I never thought of was how it articulates out like this. I really like that. That I like a lot. My question for you, Jason, is there supposed to be cool shade in here?
In the Return of the Jedi version, yes. In the
Okay.
ESB version, no. And the
Okay.
reason why you see that little wave there
Yeah.
is that's just a sheet of thin styrene, I think 0.2. I think as it was getting hot under the stage light, you had a little bit of a ripple.
Yeah.
And also what a lot of people do, if you've seen those two openings, on the right side, you see a piece of an engine, and on the left, you don't. So again, this is 100% screen accurate.
Okay.
At least from what I know. Don't quote me on that. But from what I gather and research I did, I think this is 100% screen accurate. So some people idealize it and do put cool shade there because it looks good. It's their vents, right? But because this one was only seen for, it was a blink and you miss it situation during the Battle of Hoth, they didn't use the cool shade, and I don't think it was worth their time or effort to do so. And it was just a piece of styrene placed there. So this is another one I was working on. This one was a little tricky because this originated as a kit. This was a resin kit at first. And what I started to do is I started to shave a lot of the grooves off with a Dremel and then replace them as I found the kit parts. So that's what I was saying. Like, it's kind of tricky if you want to do a 3D part, a scratch build. So this is sort of like a 60-40 or 70-30 if I want to be more accurate. So 70% kit, 30% scratch, where the kit exists, but it was done well enough where when I got the original donor parts, they fit pretty well. They fit within reason. And then the decals, Jason Eaton makes some great decal sheets, but I also learned, I think it was the Subaru or the Subaru Aero, but one of the planes, the decals from one of the Subaru planes is actually the ones used on this tie. So I was able to find an original kit with the original decals and slap some of them on.
Yeah, we're the best, Robin. We know.
So this one's incomplete. The reason why the front's left open is I'm just working on the lights, both in the back and the front.
So this is your kit? I'm sorry, I missed that part. My son
Yeah, so this was a kit.
Okay.
Some of these parts, again, were shaved off, and the original ones were added. Some of them are pre-existing from the kit if they were too difficult to find. And then the wings are just casted and just painted over with engine black.
Okay.
But they're slotted in. So this, Chris, is what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Behind the tree. So you can see right here, piece 1, piece 2, piece 3, piece 4. Those are all the back side of the ATST.
All these here.
Right where you,
these two.
So not the two. Yep, those two, and then the two circular ones go on the chin gun. Those go on the back panel.
These here.
I got this. Yep, I got this spruce for I think $11 with $3 shipping.
Man.
So instead of spending $125 on this kit, I got these pieces and got what I needed out of it.
Man, we definitely got to talk about that. I'm tired. I spent a lot of money on kits. Yeah, so these two are on the back.
More back panel pieces. Yep. More back panel pieces. More gun pieces. Those circular discs are also on the back behind those two other engines with the circular holes. Those go there as well. So I think I paid $15 for this one. So right there, you almost have the entire back panel as far as the greeblies go for $27.
Now these are the front.
Those are the eye shields.
Yeah.
Yep. Paid $10 for that one.
Yep.
This is the little piece that goes on a leg. Just a tiny, right over if you cross over.
These here?
Yep. That's just a tiny piece that goes on the leg. And I can actually point it out. I'll show you real quick.
Slave 1. That's on Slave 1.
Yeah, you'll actually see a lot of Slave 1 pieces.
Yeah.
On there.
Hey, CZ. How's it going? We don't have big heads. We don't.
So that little piece, again, may seem silly, but that actually goes right here. That little piece
let me
right
make
there.
it bigger.
Yeah, so this right here.
Yep.
Because I needed that and I wasn't about to spend $90 on a kit, I bought that.
What kit is that?
I was able to.
What kit is that?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't know. It's a $90 kit. I think that's a flak.
It might be. It was a little bit on the higher side. It wasn't one of like the $20 or $30 ones. It was a little bit more expensive.
Because I have this. I just don't remember what kit it is. Because I've used these parts for other things. And these. Okay. All right. Let's see. What kits are my pieces? Any I'm not
So
sure what
that one
pieces you use
piece,
here.
go right in the middle, go down, right? Nope. Oh, up one more.
Here.
Nope, one more.
Here.
Yep. So that's right between the eyes on the ATST.
Oh, okay,
So I
cool.
was able to got this one for $10, strip that out, pop it on. Yeah. So I basically
Dude.
built it for half the cost.
So Brian, I'm starting to see why these models can be so expensive. $15 for a
Yes.
little piece. No, that's because he found some way
And
to
I was
find
shortcutting.
Yeah, you're
Yes, Brian, that
shortcutting,
was a
dude.
shortcutting.
He bought just the tree for $15. Most of the time, you're buying a
Most of these
$100
kits are
kit.
hundreds. Yeah.
Yeah, hundreds of dollars just for one little half-inch piece. A lot of times,
Yeah,
that's where
especially
it
with the
gets expensive.
ATST, where a lot of them,
Yeah.
like, you may only need one or two pieces, and the kit is like $140. Like that found part that we were talking about, that little chrome piece that I showed.
Yeah.
That kit cost me about $150, and I just needed that one part out of it.
Okay. So yeah, these are the
So
mud
this stuff's
flaps that
already
are on
used.
everything.
The chest flaps, those circular
Yep.
pieces go on the leg, and then
Here's
these go on those
cannons.
guns as you cut them down. But
Yeah.
that's also on the iron cannon. That's on Slave 1. So yeah, a lot of the stuff gets
Yeah.
significantly repurposed.
Slave 1. These are the actual. They make up the cannon, the two outside parts of the cannon, for the ion cannon. Yeah, great job, Jason. Lovely work,
I
brother.
appreciate it, man. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to doing that soon. As soon as I finish these damn ion cannons. Like I said, these are
Just clean pictures. Yeah, these are just clean pictures. I was thinking.
Like this is the Return of the Jedi.
The Return of the Jedi
version. I don't know why. I like the Empire version way more than I like the Jedi. It's so much nicer. The Jedi version is almost kind of comical looking.
It's not proportioned properly, at least in my eyes. It's got its own look. But what I think is interesting, when you're going through the original Iron Land resource and reference material, you'll see the ATST for Return of the Jedi was almost going to be the ESB version. So it shows the ESB version, but it's stamped Return of the Jedi. And then they ended up making it a little bit more bigger and cumbersome.
That's a great picture of the Sandcrawler. It really is.
Yeah, that gives a good idea of like the color and contrast.
Yeah.
And I thought this is a great picture of the Y-Wing and how weathered it really is.
It's pretty it's very weathered. It's a lot of dark there, you know. I don't know how I feel about that. I kind of want to lighten mine up a little bit when I do it. I don't know that I'm going to go that dark when I do mine. And this is the 5-foot Falcon. This is the
this one's a little washed out, and I think Stuart can chime in on this because that's definitely got a little bit more. This definitely got a little bit more grime and a little bit more weathering to it.
I mean, if you're ever like, okay, what are you talking about? Just look right here, right there on the cockpit. If it has this triangular shape, that's the 5-foot Falcon. The colors are different as well. The 32-inch. I forget who was talking to me about the Augustini. It was John Flake. The Augustini is modeled off of the 32-inch. Some people paint it the 5-inch color, the 5-foot colors, but I kept mine the 32-inch model colors. Okay. So I guess we can go to. I got a couple things. Let me pull them up. I actually put up a lot of things. We'll start with the ion. I mean, that's what I'm working on right now. It's what I'm trying to get through. Let's just go through these pictures quick. Like this is the actual picture from the movie of the ion cannon. It's a really cool piece, and I had a lot of fun building the ball. When I got to the base, man, I'm not having fun with it. I don't like doing diorama kits. And the snow has been kind of.
The snow's been the bane of your existence, I think.
Oh, I've been frustrated. It's been like I've been not wanting to work on it because the snow. I'm trying to make it look realistic. You can just slap white paint or white snow all over the place, but I want to get like these dark parts.
You want it to make it look like chunks of ice. Yeah.
Yeah, like the rock is showing through. Okay, like that looks realistic. Even it's definitely not. That looks very realistic.
Chris, I'm just going to answer this real quick. Chris says,
Sure.
amazed at the model kits from the 70s and 80s that we pull still available. Chris, a lot of them were eventually reissued by the same company, so they just basically repurposed the molds. Some of them may have missing parts or extra parts, but very rarely, 90% of the time, they're the same exact kits, just updated for for today. But that does make a big help. If you will see sometimes the vintage packaging, and you'll see a significant difference in price. But for the most part, for just simple pieces, you can just buy the reissued kit from the same company.
So, okay, Jason, so all of this was made by Jason Eaton and cast by God, I never get that name, Masterpiece Models. But this whole area right here is left blank, mainly because the reference material, the reference pictures, you can't see what really was there, and the actual model right now, Jason Eaton had seen in person, heavily damaged, a lot of fuzz like growing on it, almost like mold. But what is like a chemical reaction, the paint peeling up from
baking soda in the paint,
baking soda.
All that.
And I want to talk about the baking soda later on when I get to the snow aspect of it. But what we were talking about, that cannon and the parts from the ATST, they're right there. Like there's two of them back to back right there.
Right there.
You know.
I see you get the little circular. I love it from the Ferrari. You threw a little circle on there on the top.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, I like that, and
that's a nice
I used it there, and I wanted to use it again on mine. Like this is Steve's, and I wanted to use that circle on mine, and I didn't have another one. I'm like, damn it, I already glued it on. So I'm like, Steve's getting a Ferrari piece, whatever, But like, here's a close up of the second one that I did for myself. This is, I actually bought a modern model kit that Jason Eaton had talked about one of his videos. It's a big, weird looking bulldozer. It's called a DR9, Menga DR9. It's relatively new, but he said it had a lot of really cool pieces that you can put on that fit well
for freestyling.
And I wanted to try it to see if it was something that I would like. And it turned out, like, when I was building this and putting the pieces on, I didn't really like it. But then once I primed the whole thing and got, like, once it was all one solid color, I'm like, oh, I actually like that better, which is what I wanted to do in the begin with, So, like I say, here's the one that I did for Steve, and this is the one I did for myself. There's a little more on here, but, yeah. So these are just progress builds, progress pieces. I appreciated the ball, all the panel lines and stuff, and then went over it with a mixture of gray and white. Tamiya, actually, I used the same as Jason Eaton's mixture, to be honest. And then to add the streaking, I used oil paints, which you put a little on and you use some odorless turpenoid and streak. It actually works really good, Jason. I don't know if you've used it yet, but
no, that I haven't.
And it's very, like, if you don't like it, you can it comes off easily, and it actually, you can play with it for a long period of time to get it exactly the way you want it. Like, I must have did this part right here, these two lines about 5 times to get it the way I wanted it to look.
Nice.
And then, like, here
good.
you can,
I like the colors of that.
Even in here, I used a beige oil paint and kind of just like filtered it, like put a filter on of to give it like a faded look to it. You know what I mean? You can see the gray in there. I think I have a picture of the gray. Okay, so what I did was I took this picture and then I turned up the saturation to show the gray. I don't think it's this picture. When I find it, then I'll show you. Like, you can see like the different streaks from the oil paints
and the different layers building up too. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, here it is. Here. This is how it normally looks. Okay. And then by saturating it, Oh, come on. Where's that? There it is. You can see the difference. You can see where I used a beige color to give it a different, you know what I mean, different look.
Yeah, and these are good techniques. I'm glad that you showed that, Chris. So anybody who like David, for example, I know you've been posting some model images, which I think it's great that you're sharing. So there's always things where like you never stop learning. No one person knows just about everything and anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the great part about this, because there's always something where like I can teach Chris something, or Chris can teach me something, or this person who has been doing it for 10 years or 20 years can teach you something. So I've plenty of times have used my phone camera, or I've taken a picture of something and I've actually reversed or highly saturated the image to see where I need to maybe go a little bit light-handed on the weathering, a little bit heavier. Should I mix colors a little bit differently? Because that, when you're staring at something for a long time, everything starts to sort of like just blend together.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a fresh set of eyes, it's different. But also, we're looking at an image via a computer screen. Every person in the chat right now is seeing this as a different color, because no two computer screens are exactly the same.
Right.
And Chris's lighting, depending on what time of day it is, what type of lighting he's using, there's so many variables, right? So there's different things that you can utilize to help you with that. So it was interesting that you were showing that just as an example, but it's actually a great tool that I use from time to time as a saturation.
Well, the reason why I even found out about it was I think it was Guy Cohen, or it was either Lee Ralph, Guy Cohen, somebody on ArchiveX. They mentioned it to find when I was working on Slave One. Okay, if you take the reference pics for Slave One and highly saturate the colors, you will see colors that are underneath the top layers, and you'll also see where they used thin paint to give it like a stain here or a stain there. It brings out a lot of the colors that you can't see with just your eye. You know what I mean? Like, depending on the lighting, because every picture that's taken of these models has a different flash. It's taken at a different time of 1 year to the next. Different people taking it with different cameras. You never really get a good perfect reference picture of it. And even if you got, you think you have it, all the colors perfect, you see it in person, it's completely different. Like, I know a lot of people who thought Slave One was like light green and dark green, but then when they saw it, it's more gray and green than it is green.
And that does help, because a lot, especially some of those images that were taken either with Polaroids or just cameras from the 70s, you're not going to see the high resolution images that you see today. So a lot of the color and contrast, or even the weathering, we sometimes translate by people copying it verbatim. And another thing I think we discussed recently was there's plenty of ships where there's a lot of debris, dust, and buildup that actually gets mistaken from time to time as weathering. So that's another thing that's tricky.
So here's my snow dilemma. Okay, so I'll show you from the beginning. So this is kind of how I painted certain parts of it brown, with different layers of brown, to get a real rocky look. Okay,
which I like. That looks really good.
I like it too. It turned out really good. I knew most of it was going to get covered up. I knew that. And then like where I knew there was just all snow, I did brown and blue. Okay, I did some blue. Okay, which ice and snow have a blue tone to them. They have grays, they have blues, they have tans. Snow is not just white. So like where you see here, that's some of the blue showing through. This is not finished. I got a lot more snow to put on here. And I've used a lot of snow. It's become the bane of my existence. So here it's pretty heavy. And then I wanted it really heavy on the part where the snow settles the best. And then on the edges, I'm working on light amounts of snow just to, because when there's a flat surface and snow's stuck to it, it falls off. It doesn't stay on a sheer wall. And then I also have like something called snow sparkles, and it's like this liquid, glossy, snowy mixture. So it looks more like sleet when you build it up. Like really thick ice. When you walk through a gutter and
Yeah.
you step in it and it's all that slush that goes.
Sloshed together.
Yeah, it's all sloshed together. And I'm getting pretty far with it. Like this is kind of, I still got more snow to put on here to cover up like a lot of this blue so it isn't standing out so much. And then, it's coming. It's not, I'm not having fun with this part. This is the one part I'm not having fun with. Yeah, it's just it's a slugfest for me for that. But those are the on cam pictures. Let's see what else we got.
So, Chris, I'm going to send you something that I was using, and I'll apologize ahead of time because I know we discussed this, but this is something I implemented into both the pearls and the water crystallization and all that to make the snow look wet, and then just the snow technique. But I'm going to send you this now because this is something that I was using just to spray a little bit as a little bit of a guide, because in this way you can kind of just sort of mist over it, and it still gives you that good, sort of good. But this might help with a little bit of frustrations. It seems super cheesy, and people might even laugh at it. But I'm going to send a picture over to you now in Messenger.
I like Benjamin's idea.
So
Yellow snow.
So I've used this in some of the areas, Chris. I was trying to keep the secret to myself because most people kind of look at that and laugh. But if you just sit back, if you're about 8 to 10 inches back and you give a few whoosh, whoosh, it gives it that textured pattern, and then you can go right over it with some of the A and K or some of the wet look, or even just some misting of a airbrush white.
I was asking you for pictures.
It gives that textured feel.
2 weeks ago, I was ready to strangle you. I was going to strangle you if you didn't send me damn fucking pictures. I was really not happy.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense now?
It makes sense. I guess I have to share it now a little bit, don't I? Because we're talking about it. I don't feel like being such a squirrel. Yeah.
So this stuff is meant for like Christmas trees,
Yeah.
If you want to give it that, or like when you're doing pine cones, arts and crafts. The thing is, you have to get a feel for it. It sprays out pretty heavy, and it can go on thick if you're too close. But if you spray this at the right distance and you give it just enough of a coating, it looks, as you see in the picture, it looks just like that, and it coats really nice and looks like it really looks like a wet snow.
It's not interact with the paint weird, is it? It's because
No,
I'm always afraid that I'm doing the wrong mixture and it's gonna mess up something.
No, and it even helps get rid of that sort of gingerbread coated. You know what I'm talking about when you're like sort of icing the gingerbread cookie?
Yeah.
Get rid of that weird look that some of the synthetic snow makes.
All right, I'm gonna have to get that. Hopefully, it takes care of my anger. Chris, what oil paints do you use? Brand colors. Okay, so I've heard about this one oil paint called Starship Filth. I can't tell you who the manufacturer is. It's a foreign company. I think it's German. I might be wrong. I'm not 100%, but Starship Filth. I got it on Amazon for it's like a brownish black. Just makes things look filthy. And then for the tans, I just got any beige color oil paint at Michael's. I didn't really care what brand it was. Those are the only two oil paints I've ever worked with. So, I'm sorry. I'm Mauricio. Okay, Mauricio. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. I know it's a completely different thing, but I'm just curious. Have you guys ever considered dabbling in creature organic model kit painting?
I used to when I was younger. I used to mess around with them.
Yeah,
just because that's what was available.
I had this absolutely amazing Bernie Wrightson Frankenstein model. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bernie Wrightson Frankenstein piece where he's coming up, where he first comes alive and he comes off the table and he's grabbing a hold of Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
From Bernie Wrightson.
I didn't know who the maker was, but I know the image in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. It was Bernie Wrightson, and this model kit was absolutely stunning. And I played around with it a little bit, and I don't know what happened to it. Like my brother and I were talking about it the other day, and I was like, "Where is this thing?" Because I would love to get a hold of that painting, and it's pretty expensive to get if you can find it. I've seen it on eBay maybe 1 or 2 times. Haven't been looking hard, but that would be a cool one that I would try to do. Creature organic model painting. I don't know if you mean like masks or stuff like like Regal Robot, Salacious Crumb. I've never tried it. It's not something I probably would do because I'm more into the ships than I am the creatures in Star Wars. So
Yeah, but I think it's something that might be fun.
yeah,
But it's
maybe.
yeah. And then in addition to that snow stuff, Chris, I mean, I'm sure everybody's already gotten into, but I've also been using these on Iron Cannon, the wet
Yeah,
effects with the sprinkles.
Let me
Yeah.
pull you up.
Yeah.
Put them again.
So just
Those are
the
those are the
sprinkles
exact
and
same
then
things I have.
the wet effects works great. And then Krylon actually makes what's called a glitter blast. And it's not technically glitter, it's more like these sort of mirror little bits of like a reflective or almost iridescent. And
Yeah.
if you spray that underneath, like very, very little, that'll also give you that snow look, like a fresh snow look.
So I'm not going to show you this. Is the next thing I'm going to show you is not something that I made. It's something that I bought, but I'm extremely happy with it, and I love this thing. It was this is the this is an actual model from Solo. Okay, this is the ATDT from Solo, and it's like a precursor to a ATST, but John Simmons built one all out of model kit parts. Take a look at this, Jason. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
Love it.
It is pretty awesome. It's small.
That's a fun piece, man.
It is. It's an awesome piece, and like I said, it's all built from model kit parts. That piece look familiar to you?
Yeah, look at
Jason?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's top of ATST, yeah.
Yeah. So they must have made a maquette of this for the movie. It was digitally done, in the actual movie, but then he made this, and I freaking love it. Like, look at that detail.
I love the stippling and the damage on the what looks like metal surface. And another thing, guys, too, for those maybe curious, when a lot of the pieces and kits are repurposed and used over and over and over again across different models, keep in mind a lot of these kits, whether it's a Ferrari or a Ford or a tank, they're made in different scales. So you have the same kit and maybe 1/12th, 1/20, 1/35th. So you might say, oh, that same piece, I know that piece, it's used here. Well, wait a minute, that model's so much bigger or so much smaller. And that may be true. It may just be a different scale that they pulled that kit from.
Jason, I got this in hand and I'm like, man, I have a long way to go. I really, really do.
But I feel like there's no better reference than when you have these pieces in hand to use them as something to hold to this, look at, put it to the side, look at it and use it as reference in practice.
I mean, look at this thing.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
It's freaking stunning. I just recently got it, so I wanted to show it off a little bit.
Wow, even the part that holds the gun, that circular piece coming up like this, that's the chin of the ATST.
Here?
Nope.
What chart are you talking about? The head?
Nope, go up, right. Nope. You see right there. No, that little, yep. That's the chin of the ATST.
That's on Slave 1 as well.
Yeah. It's crazy.
There's 2 of them. Is there 2? Yeah, there's 2. Yeah, I absolutely love this piece. Yeah, I just wanted to show that a little bit. Just to show you what a master. I mean, I'm an amateur. I think you could probably say the same thing. We're both pretty much amateurs when it comes to this. Like this is just this is next level stuff. So another thing I just got from John Simmons as well was his Death Star crane. I haven't received it yet, but it's very quick and miss it. If you, it's right here in the shot. And if you
this is from John, or
this is from John.
Nice.
Yep. This is all scratch. This is scratch build as well.
It's
gorgeous.
A cool piece. I like that.
It is a gorgeous piece. But I think the only thing that is not a model kit part is I think he said he scratch built this triangle or something. They couldn't make out what it is. But I mean the detail on that. And this is just a comparison size, you know.
So
I have two of these coming from two model Death Star towers also from Jason Eaton coming. I would love to build this sucker. I would love to build that. That thing's gorgeous. But yeah, there's a good picture, good shot of it. Let's see, what else should we look at? Would you want to see I guess I could show you the Harrier that I just painted this. This is a piece from from Lee Ralph. He scratch built this. It's this gray one right here. Okay. I bought it a little while ago and I never got to paint it. What was it, like 6 months? Something like that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this here is the Harrier, the Vosper ship that I scratch built all the little this is all model kit parts built together. But then like I painted it and I painted this Harrier piece and this is started. Okay, I started with a base layer and then I started adding these shapes by taking a stencil, a piece of card and cutting out random shapes and putting it over top, holding it over top, spraying it, moving it, turning it, spraying it. And then all these little shapes, you know, they're dark here. Okay. I have blue, pink. I have a couple other colors I added on there as well. And yellow. Like this is before. This is the base colors I put on, like I lightly sprayed. And you can see some of it is faded. You know, it's not all solid. And then what I did was I missed it over top of it. It looks like a jigsaw puzzle, really, to begin with. And then, what I was going for was basically this look, which is not a good picture of it, but this is Home 1, the Mon Calamari ship. Let's see if I can rotate it. There we go. I was kind of going for this kind of pattern, sort of, mixed with a Rebel Transport, because the Rebel Transport has pinks and blues, and it's misted over with a gray, which if you're looking at it from a distance, you can't see it, but if you come up close, you can see the colors, underlining colors underneath it. Okay. But then like this is where I miss it over top with the base color, and it just kind of hides a lot of those shapes, but also you can still see through it. It's like a different.
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit more subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually love it. At first, I was like, I don't know if I like it that much. But the more I looked at it, the more I was like, oh, I actually really love it. Like, maybe nobody else does, but I do. So that looks pink because of the lighting. But let's see if I can find the good pictures. Like this just gives you like an idea, like all the scratch built pieces. And then I have my 3 background ships that I'm building right now. Eventually they're all going to have Jason Eaton bases. All 3 of them will. This is completely Jason Eaton's design, and I'm just copying it because I think he did an amazing job. And actually, to be honest, my neighbor is the one who laser cut it because he knows how to do that. I have no idea how to do that yet. I'm going to buy one eventually. So, here's a good shot. Here's a good shot.
Yeah, that's a nice shot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little better showing of the color than the other ones were washed out. Get rid of these other pictures. Up close, you can see the speckles all over. That's what it looks like in the archives. It's just gray. No paint, no nothing, just gray. So, yeah. That's what I've been working on. I did the X-Wing too, but I think I showed that a while ago. Didn't I? The X-Wings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've showed the X-Wing.
So what we also wanted to talk about was some model kits that we're interested in.
Yeah.
And we really need to go first and foremost with Lassie I want to say his name right. Lassie Henning, right? A guy in Norway. Is it Norway he's from?
Yeah, it's Oslo, Norway. I could be wrong, but I think close.
He scratch builds model kits, and then he scratch builds it out of, styrene and model kit parts, and then casts it. He doesn't do many, and they're a little hard to come by, especially this one. Don't get your hopes on in the Y-wing, this A-wing here, because he only was able to make a certain amount before his molds didn't.
Well, I mean, this guy's literally making them by hand
in his
home.
house.
So you get to take, like literally scratch by hand at home.
Yes.
So yeah, you're only getting, I don't know, a handful at best, maybe double that.
Right.
Yeah.
So like here's his model kit. It's I've seen people have gotten it and they've said they've raved about how great it is. And I mean, just look at these pieces. They look clean. They don't look like they have a lot of flashing. They don't look like they require a lot of cleanup. The A-Wing is an awesome piece. It's a beautiful ship. I'm not a fan of a big A-Wing. I've said that to you many, many times because I like the 1/24 scale X-Wing and Y-Wing, and I kind of want an A-Wing that kind of goes with those. But this thing's just too good to pass up. I have one. We both have one currently in the mail coming on its way. But they're going to stop popping up on some of these sites, people painting them, trying their hands at them. I don't know what else to say. It's a gorgeous model kit, and I'm very much looking forward to trying my hand at it. I wish I had taken some pictures.
Very well with an A-Wing helmet.
Yeah. I mean, look at the detail on it. I mean, it's so good. And wait till you see the pilot inside. He sculpted by hand, and it's funny because I love his big honking nose there. I love it. I don't know why I do. He's got these bags under his eyes too. I can't tell you why I love it.
Just look at an old guy. It looks like he'd be sucking on a cigar.
It looks like, I shouldn't say this, an old Englishman. But it's just it's fitting. I think it's fantastic. I really do. Yeah, like I said, there's those Ferrari pieces.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, details pretty spot on.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous. I mean, look at this. This is a cast kit. Like, you don't normally get this kind of detail on a cast kit.
Unless you're getting like a very, I don't know, most cast kits that I've gotten have been a lot of work, have been daunting.
But even like the sharpness of detail, like normally you only get this kind of sharpness when you use model kit parts. It's tough to come by kits that have this sharp of a detail. I mean, look at this pattern here. Yeah. I mean, normally you'd be missing like this one here and this one here and all of these little rivets on there. It would be
you're redefining it with the razor. Yeah.
Yep. You have to scratch out all the crap that's left in there, or even you get like a big hunk of latex in this spot right here. It's fantastic. It really is. He's definitely a master at what he does. He did a couple other things that I know of. We'll get to that one, but he took the probe droid. What do they call that? Launch pod? What do they call that? and he expanded it to be bigger than the normal size, the normal studio scale size. That wasn't something I would really want, but it's still really well done, you know. So the other thing he did was cloud cars, and we have some cloud
Another
cars coming.
beautiful, clean,
Yes.
precise. And then, if I remember correctly, I know it was a few years back, but I think he did a 1/18 scale Vader TIE X1.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, it was going back a bit. I think 5 years, 6 years, but that's the one that I knew of by name that he had done, because although it was larger, the detail on it was magnificent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to doing these. I really am. The cloud
this
cars.
is a paint job that I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to
Yes.
be a fun paint job. Yeah.
Yes. Because I'm going to show you, like, I have, this is his paint job. This is Lassie's paint job, I think. And it comes on this, comes with this base. And I'm going to show you some of what John did, John Simmons. What I love is these slightly different colored panels. They're not,
Panels, yeah.
they're so subtle. You know, it's if you're looking from a distance, you can barely see it, but then, you know, have it in person, you can. It's just, I don't know. I love it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to do, and John did a fantastic job. He really does. I'm sure most people know he does a great job. But I'm going to be using these as reference. I'm going to be using these.
And I like that clean classic base too, where he extended it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't use the base that came with it. I mean, those are kit parts.
Yeah.
Look how detailed they are, dude. Like, even these rivets, they're so, maybe John cleaned them up a little, I don't know, but they look so clean.
And that's another thing I recently learned. We talked about this as well, Chris. So a lot of times when you see these little rivets in the ships, right? A lot of these were made of styrene and they were vac formed. So those rivets were added after the fact. So when I was building the ATST, I didn't know. I was like, are these model kit parts? Because they're placed so strategically that they look like they may have come from a kit. So I had to cut the sheets of styrene and then actually put those rivets in. And you don't want to go, through the piece. You don't want to put too much in, but you got to put enough to make definition. And I didn't know that. So now, as you're looking at further pieces, you're like, oh, okay, this is something that they did on their own as they were building these models up originally.
They just took a drill bit. They just took a drill bit and put a little divot in.
And one thing I learned from, I think, watching Adam Savage was those little circular pieces. The reason why you see those on a lot of the model kits is because they refract light very well. So it allows you to see different. Yep, see those little circular pieces right there?
These here?
The purpose of choosing those greeblies were for refraction of light against the camera. So as a ship was passing by really quick, it gave a sort of dynamic look or feel to the ship. Hence, those little bits, because the light would bounce off ever so slightly, that it would give good feedback to the camera.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize that either. I just thought they put them there just because they were cool.
I think both, but I think I'm starting to see that those are placed on a lot of models, and then I had just happened to be watching one day, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. It's the reason why.
Yeah. Just some of the detail is just phenomenal. Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty much all the pictures that I have, I think. I mean, we're open to taking some questions if anybody wants to, ask any. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to go through some of the Merlin model pieces too.
Do you want to real quick just go through? Does Tamiya make a snow effect? I believe they do. Tamiya makes just about everything.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I want to say yes because it's just a safe bet to assume that they do. On that solo walker, that the rust in the metal, it looks like actual metal, and that's when you have superb paint job.
Yeah.
A-wing is amazing. The one thing though, a lot of people are asking the scale on that. There's no right or wrong answer to that, because there's so many different variations and scales. It's just a beautiful kit, and you're right, it does. It looks sick. And then Brian says, what are both your dream kits? Any that you'd want to do that might be unattainable? It starts off where almost everything's unattainable, Brian.
Yeah.
The barrier to entry is a headache, to say the least. And I mean that kindly. I don't say that speaking any ill will, but it was quite frustrating getting into it. And, you're dealing with pieces that are a half a century old at this point, right? 40, 50 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of these kits, although that have been reissued, there's still a lot of there's people that have spent decades IDing these kits and trying to figure out what,
and still not finding out certain parts.
Yeah, still not finding out what certain parts are, but those who had spent so much time, they kind of hold it close to the chest, rightfully so. I respect that. But it's tricky. And it's one of those things where, like, so many of them are unattainable in one way or the other, some aren't. But there's always ways that you can just use some creative liberties and work around that. As far as a dream kit, I like more the extension of a kit. For example, like right now I'm working on a scratch-built Jedi training remote. That's the thing when Luke pulls down the blaster shield in New Hope and he's fighting the thing on the Millennium Falcon, that ball. What I like is how they made that thing operate, where it spins. It's attached to this metal box, and it's got like a motor and another, few different pieces. Well, I was able to track down the motor and the other parts that go in that box. I'm going to recreate not just the model, but the way the model sits on the model, on the metal box with the motors and spins. And I even found the motor down to the actual part, like that part number and whatnot. So those are the type of things that I find as like dream kits, because most kits with enough due diligence, time, effort, and energy can be attained, or with enough finances.
I mean, at one point I would have said Slave One would have been something that I was lusting after for a little while. We were lucky to find it pretty quickly though.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too many of them since then. I'm sure there's still some out there. The Salzo Slave One kit. But the problem with that is there was a lot of pieces missing. Like you had to find out. I mean, there's no
instructions. There's no parts list.
There's none. And you may have one part and you need a mirror part for almost every one of them. And it was frustrating to figure out. Like I was still new. I was very new and I had no idea. And I didn't know what parts I needed.
You could be 3/4 of the way through a build and then be like, hey, it's missing something, and you don't even know that it's missing.
No, you have no idea. And
that's not real quick. I don't mean to cut you, but that's nothing. We're talking about the Salzo kit just because that's where it originated from. We're not talking about Salzo specifically. It's just that as these kits get cast or passed on to the next person, lot of it's like a game of telephone, right? How it originates versus what you end up with is two different things. So as it passes through hands, things just sort of,
yeah. I mean, it was. That's not a kit for a beginner. It's definitely a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And I find that kits aren't really thrilling me as much as they used to because, like I said, again, I'm starting to get into scratch built stuff. And it's almost easier to build from model donor kits than it is to clean up.
It sounds elitist at first, the way it comes out, it sounds elitist. But technically, it's actually easier because it's less work.
Yes.
It's less elbow grease.
Yes.
It's less time. You're literally just taking the pieces and you're ready to pop them on, prime them, and paint them.
And sometimes you have to trim and cut pieces, which is true. But there were times where I was building Slave One and I didn't know what was supposed to be cut off of an individual part, like a small part like this. There'd be something sticking out of it. And I'm like, does that need to be cut off or no? I had no idea. And sometimes the pieces are warped or sometimes they're missing details in resin kits. Whereas if you're building something with all donor kit model pieces, you're not going to have holes in it. You're not going to be missing things. It's just, but then again, it's also very hard to build that donor model kit because you have to get a parts list. And, that's also not so easy to get because
No.
people put a lot of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears in figuring out, we're IDing these parts and, spending lots of time designing, trying to get all the measurements right. And that's kind of where the secret squirrel thing comes in play. But at first, the secret squirrel thing was frustrating to me. And I didn't understand why people would not want to share all this information. But the more I got into this, the more I kind of understand it now. I understand why people keep these things closer to their vest, because it becomes personal. Like, it becomes an obsession to figure out what this damn piece is from this tank kit or this car kit, so I don't know.
No, you're
I
right.
think,
It was frustrating, but then you have a deeper appreciation for
yeah,
the amount of time, effort, and energy that goes into it, and how difficult it can be. And there's a sense of respect that you
yeah,
tend to take on, where you're like, okay, like this can be. There's a reason why people hold it close to chest. A lot of people get very frustrated. I was frustrated at first. You were frustrated
yeah,
at first, but when you learn
yeah.
the reasons, you tend to let your guard down a little bit and ease up
Makes
on it.
sense. It makes a little sense
Yeah.
after you're in it for a little bit and you understand why. Plus, you tend to make friends then. If they share something with you and you go blabbing it all over the place and tell everybody this and tell everybody that, you're not going to keep that friend, that resource for very long. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, I'll send you that. Yeah, right. So, I don't know. You make a lot of friendships that way too, as well. Like, I've made a bunch of new friendships that I didn't have before, and I
Yeah,
value.
a lot of great relationships we built.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and the people who are in this community, Matt doesn't like the studio scale community. I know he doesn't. He thinks it's all cutthroat and vicious, but there's a lot of very helpful people. If there's a lot of helpful people. So keep that in mind when you're getting involved in this. I just want to go through some of these Merlin shots quick. Then we can take more questions. I know if you have any questions, throw them up there. We'll get to them really, really quick, really soon. So this is a piece that I'm very much looking forward to. I know you're not particularly a fan of the base, but I actually am. I'm looking forward to this. I like the base and how it lights up and how it looks like snow, and without being a diorama,
Yeah.
I don't want to make snow again. This will be the last time. So my plan for this is actually to cut it open here and have an inside lit up and show stormtroopers inside there. And I saw a picture once where they're like rappelling out of it to come down, and that's kind of what I want to do. And right now it's apparently shipping, so we should be receiving these relatively soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ethan's done a good job. He really does genuinely care. A couple of the bases started showing up cracked, and he took care of that right away. And I mean, just look at the packaging you get with this. It's very well taken care of, and he wants you guys to have this. So
Yeah, they're putting a lot into
they
this, and
are.
we'll do. I know it's hard to like do a quote unquote unboxing of
Yeah.
a model, but What I'm gonna do is when the kids come in, I'm gonna sit down. I think Chris may join me, where I'm gonna unbox some of it just to give you guys an idea of how it's
Mhm.
packaged. I mean, some of you might already also have it in hand. It's not like we're getting it first, but as they start coming in, once I get mine, I'm gonna open it up, just give an idea of how it's packed, what it looks like, and maybe do a comparison of like what you get with a regular kit. So I think that's going to speak volumes. One of the things that I think I'm getting the feeling that people are apprehensive about with Merlin models is they're not quite sure yet of what they're receiving for the price, right? Everybody's like, oh, for X amount of dollars, I could do this, or for X amount of dollars less, I can do that. But I think once in hand, we'll be able to showcase and points, the differences and the compare and contrast of what you're getting and why. So I'm
And
looking forward to it.
I think since the AT-AT, okay, he did the AT-AT, and I don't I don't know. I don't know how much of it is scanned off kit parts. I don't know. You know a little more about that, but I know that he has started to buy model kit parts and scan those and use actual model kit parts for his,
Yes,
other
moving
pieces
forward, I think
moving
they're
forward.
being a lot more
Yes.
diligent with using the actual model kits. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then there's his Imperial Shuttle,
Yep.
which I've pre-ordered. I pre-ordered the big one, which I remember talking to you, Jason. I'm like, I don't know that I want the big one now, but I showed it to my son. He's like, why would you get the small one when you could get the big one? So I'm like, all right, I'll just stick to the big one. So I do a lot of things based
That's
off
why.
of, yeah.
That picture right there.
Well, this is the small one, dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
this is the small one. I have a picture of the big one. There's the big one.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a big boy.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I thought I had a front picture of it, of the big one. I guess I don't. Do I? Yes, I do. No, we don't need that. Yep, there it is. Big boy. Damn. I don't know where I'm gonna put it. I should by rights go to the smaller route, but I probably won't.
So real quick, Chris, go back to that the
Yeah.
shuttle. So if you're interested, or anybody that's interested, right above the cockpit there's a vent below the middle wing. That right there, I'm sure they're going to do a great job. But like one of the things where I was saying how I'll take a Dremel, I'll kind of shave pieces off on the original model kit. That's actual cool shade, so you can always yep. So you can always just cut that out and actually replace it with cool shade. But I think they're taking cool shade or emulating it, as precisely as they can. But if you wanted to give it that extra flair, you could always do something like that.
Yeah, I should just get the small one. Damn it. Oh well.
Yeah, that's huge.
That is humongous. 2 foot high. The small one's 2 foot high. Damn it. I don't know how you display it with the wings open for the big one. I have no idea. I want to. I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out when I get it. I'll make it work. And this is, I think, a 3D printed piece that he had finished. This is not
the
actual
that sample.
Yeah, it's just a sample. But I know he worked with somebody pretty closely on identifying some of these kits. I remember he was trying to figure out something in the cockpit he sent me a picture of. I thought I knew what it was, but I didn't. I'm not great with IDing. And then there's the concept Ralph Mcquarrie X-Wing that we did a show on before. I want this bad. Like, this is going to be a fun piece.
Do you think Merlin would be a good beginner kit? I've ordered 2, but with commission from them. So as far as beginner kits, yes and no. Yes, because all the parts will be there. They'll be clean and ready to assemble. So all the headache is removed for you and you're ready to start building. So yes, but I do think there's some complexity to them because of the size and the detail that goes into them where, you want to have a little, you want to have your feet a little wet. But you can always just practice a little bit on a couple off-the-shelf kits that you grab at Target or Walmart just to get the feel for it if you haven't yet. But if you have a little bit of comfort and confidence, then Andrew, I think is a great kit to start with, especially where you're not spending hours of cleaning and cutting and reshaping. Then these are perfect. Brian asks Chris, where you're putting all these with a haha. I know he's asking you directly, but I tend to put mine. I have this thing where it's funny. Me and Chris accidentally went in this direction where Chris started doing these background chips because you don't see too many people with a collection of background chips. Some people have 1 or 2, but not a collection of them. And I collect concept. So I'm doing concept to screen used, and I display them like that. And then Chris has his concept, which I think the concept and screen used are going to be displayed separately, right?
I don't really know yet. So I'm planning on, so in the middle I have a bunch of pedestals, and I think I'm going to build like a waist high shelf going across the middle that has multi levels, so that I can start putting models on there. I don't know what else I can do. I have a big room and I have lots of space, but like I've told many times, I don't want to clutter it. That's my plan right now. When my son moves out in a couple years, which is behind this wall, there's a whole 15 by 20-foot room in there that's going to get shelves all along the walls, and that's where my models are going to go eventually. So I think it'll work for now. First, I got to get rid of these stupid boxes that are driving me nuts. Saturday, brother, I'm getting everything put back together. It's literally like on my anxiety list. Like, it's just giving me anxiety. All of these boxes are occupying my space in here. I have shown shots of the Augustini Falcon. I've shown them on ArchiveX Paint, ArchiveX Paint Facebook group. A lot of pictures. I don't know if I put them up in our group or not. You can look. If I haven't, just hit me up. I'll send you pictures. It's okay. I'll send you what I have. I don't think I have any on my computer, but yeah. Any more questions? Anybody have any more questions? Like, that's all the pictures we have. That's all we. I thought we'd take a while to do those pictures, but
Yeah, I was gonna potentially look through the sci-fi studio scale concept training room, but we can always say that for next. No, we can save that next time because I want to have some further work in progress pics on my actual scratch built training remote, and then this way I can kind of do a compare and contrast.
I may be able to.
I think I'm gonna go with that one.
I may be able to find a picture of my Falcon. If you want to answer some questions, Jason, why were you holding out on me on that damn freaking snow stuff? Seriously.
So I was playing with it a little bit and getting a feel for it and seeing what mixed well with it. And I don't know, I was apprehensive because it started building up and looking really good. And I just, that's right. Just like we just talked about, people hold it close to the chest, you know?
Why would you keep that close to the chest from me?
Well, like I said, I was experimenting with it at first to see how it would lay, how it would, hold up against, building more snow on top of it and against some of the paints. But it does a pretty good job with building up the texture because I started noticing, like, some of our pictures, and this isn't meant in a negative way, but something was happening to me where it was almost looking like cookie frosting versus snow. Okay. And I was getting really frustrated with it at first because I was like, oh, this is going on a little too heavy and a little too thick and not giving a natural look to it.
But it's giving a natural look?
Yeah, I stripped some of the test areas that I did and started reworking the snow. What I didn't do, which I probably should have, was after seeing yours, I didn't end up painting the base the rock color first. What I did was I ended up getting real rocks and I cut out different parts of the base and I puttied some real rocks in and then put snow on top of it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that'll be fun. That'll be more realistic. But I probably could have just made it easy on myself and just painted the rock. But it still looks good. And I had fun doing it.
It's super simple to do that rock. I mean, you just put like a brown base color and then you just dry brush a whole bunch of different colors on, like greens and browns and reds. And it's so super simple that it doesn't.
I think I just want to have a little bit more fun with it, I guess.
Yeah, it requires no talent whatsoever. I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah, no, I was just being kitschy with mine, where like I wanted little sections of like rock poke, like I couldn't really control the way the base was made. Right? It's cast the way it's cast. So there's certain areas where I wanted like rock protruding, whether it was like kind of supporting the iron cannon in a way, or there was different things that I wanted to do just for the fun of it, and I did it that way. But I started noticing while laying the snow down that it was going on a little too heavy, and then from there I was like, all right, I got to go a little bit lighter, build it up, but not go so heavy all at once, and I was able to work it out. So this is a good question.
I know I really wanted to have the rocks peeking through. That was something that was very important to me. Go ahead, answer the question, then I'll show the
so he was basically saying, where are you going to source the snow troopers for you to add at? he was hoping to do the same thing. Blitz 65 was asking. Service 65.
Well, I don't have a definite spot place yet. I was just gonna like try like what do they call it, Thingiverse or 3D, one of those 3D print sites. Thought I saw somebody. I saw somebody who had some Snowtrooper 3D files that he actually did this scene where I don't remember if you know what I'm talking, what artist that was that did those World War. He matched Star Wars with World War II. Jason.
Yeah. I remember putting that up. Wow, I put that up a long time ago. Like I think in group therapy, or
Yeah.
something, right? The black and
And
white
then
images.
there was a shot where they were all like posing in front of a downed AT-AT. Like there was a group of them,
Yeah.
and they had different um, poses and different head sculpts, and I was gonna hit up that guy if I didn't find somebody else to do it. You know, so that was my plan. I'm sure there's somebody out there has a 3D file of Snowtrooper. You know what I mean? Snowtroopers that you can get off of them and change it however you want. Let's see. That was God. I'm terrible with names. Who asked me about my Jake? Was it Jake? Somebody asked me about my.
Billy Ludwig was the artist who did those, Chris.
Okay, yeah, some of them are really cool.
Yeah, they're
Josh.
radical pieces.
Josh asked about shots of my Falcon. This is it. This was my first model. First model I ever painted.
It shows, huh? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
it's pretty rough.
No, I think it looks great.
This is where I first did the rock, so that it was like, you know, they were asteroids that I used as a plaque holder. Yeah, I'm super proud of it. It's actually my favorite piece that I've ever. It always will be my favorite piece because it's my first. And I don't know if you can see it or not. Maybe I could show it on my other pictures. The other pictures. So yeah, this is my Falcon. I think.
And this is a good go back to that one pic, Chris.
Yeah.
So going back to like the different levels of primer. Another reason why I like to use black primer. See what Chris kind of gashed into the surface there.
Yep.
The good thing about using black primer in some of these models is if you want to give specks of like damage or like, blast marks, instead of trying to paint one on, you can actually do a subtractive where if you have black underneath, you can nick some of the paint off where it looks like it's been dinged or damaged and black is showing through. And that's easy to do with like a little scuff or a nick of a tip of a Dremel.
Yeah. I think that's shown in. Did John do one of those videos where he had that? I think he did.
I've seen it a few times. I think I've seen it with John. I've seen it a couple times where I learned it from, and it works really well.
So part of the reason why this one's so special to me is because I actually, on the original Falcon, they put all of the artists signed it. Very, very small, very, very tiny. I replaced their names with names of my son's names. And there's a couple other people who are very important to me who have passed away, who are also in the spots of those artists, model makers. Like right there, you can see my son Taylor. His name's right there. Look it up. If you don't know about it, look it up. It's really cool to see where they put these names that you wouldn't think. You look at it, you would never know.
Yeah, a couple of the models have some Easter eggs, whether they're names or other things hidden into them. Yeah, it's fun.
See, that's my Falcon. Oh yeah, this is back.
What a piece! I think we're gonna have Stuart on soon to talk about his Falcon, right? I think
we've
there's
been
a little bit of a time difference because he's across the pond, but he's been working on a 5-foot one.
Like there's right there is. Oh crap! What's that name? I can't read it. My glasses. I lost my glasses in Mexico, so I'm using these stupid CVS pieces of crap that barely can see anything. So yeah, that's my Falcon. I have a lot of my pieces on here. These are just some close-ups of like my favorite parts that are painted. I love staining on a model. This is my favorite thing to do is staining. It's just thinned out paint. You take enamel and you put thinner in it and make it real like tinted thinner and just stain it. I love doing that.
Yeah.
And you put like you can just start out real light and then let it dry and then add another layer just to put like this might be like 3 layers, whereas this might be 2 layers. You know what I mean? So you just play around and see what works for you. I love this staining. So there's more staining on the Sandcrawler I did as well. This staining here. So yeah. Yeah. So any more questions? I'm just enjoying talking about this stuff. I really am.
Did you add any? Let me see. I'm surprised no one has done a documentary on model making like the original guys that started doing. So far from Death Star, there's actual. All right, so there's not documentaries per se, but if you do some digging, there's some like DVD extras that are made it onto the internet. There's the Sculpting a Galaxy exclusive edition that came with like a 30-minute DVD. Then there's just other talks. Like there's some of like Lauren Peterson, where he's giving some talks where maybe he's like doing a visiting lecture, but they show some backstory and stuff that you don't really get. Just some like, just basic conversation. But it's really interesting how they go into it because you have to take into consideration. Me and Chris brought this up a while back where the artwork, right? You see like Mcquarrie, Joe Johnson even changed some of their artwork to correlate with the models that were first built. Then they painted the artwork after versus painting the ship and building the model off the painting. So there was some of that. But then you got to keep in mind, like Y-Wing, X-Wing, Falcon, they built these things to scale life size for certain shots. So those guys then, carpentry, woodworking, etc., had to go and emulate these model pieces from these kits that they kit bashed and build them 1-to-1 scale. So that in and of itself had to be a nightmare. So the whole sort of, chicken or the egg process is really mind blowing. Any extra modifications on the interior? Yes. Chris can answer that, but I do think you did quite a few, right?
No. Okay. I take that back.
Did a few, right?
On the cockpit, I did. I added fiber optics for all the lights, and I changed for the gun turret. I added, aftermarket. What are those? I forget what those are called. Those metal pieces. Do you remember what they're called, Jason? They're like thin metal etched.
Etched pieces, yeah.
Photo etched, yes. And on the main engine, the main thruster on the back, I got from this website called 3D Millennium Falcon or something like that. This light that pulses as it starts. It has a startup sequence, and then it pulses so that it emulates that it's flying. It was expensive, but yeah, I didn't do any of the internal like holds. I didn't do any of that. I didn't want to do that because I knew I was never going to take the tops off to see them. So it was pointless for me to do the insides of them. I didn't want to, and I didn't feel like taking the extra time to do it.
Like this one, the art Star Wars book by Chris and Jason. So cool how they added these things, everything to make the vision for the Star Wars universe. Yeah, it is really fascinating.
It is.
And thanks for the compliment. But honestly, we wouldn't be here having this conversation if it wasn't for a lot of great guys who have, trusted us with a lot of info resources. And have just been really kind with being helpful. And, look, I'll be the first to admit, I sometimes felt I was coming across as a pest. It's like, well, what about this piece? And how do I do this? And what do you think about that? And what am I supposed to do with this? And, you don't think of it because you're so caught in the moment. You're so excited. Mm-hmm. But some of these guys are really patient and really open-minded and really respectful. And, I can't thank them enough. So, like I said, there's a lot to mention, but without them, we wouldn't be here having these conversations and so on and so forth.
And honestly, we can't take a lot of credit for a lot of things because there's been, gods in front of us who've mapped out IDs, all these parts, and and design things that we kind of just emulate. Like, yeah, we
Exactly.
make the kits, we paint them, but I could tell you right now, I must have asked John Simmons 100 million times, what color is this? How much did you put on of this color? And and other people as well. I'm trying. If I left your name out, I'm very sorry. I just top of my head, I asked John a lot, and Lee has helped me immensely with IDing parts. And it's always fun talking to Jason Eaton about his process, because these guys are amazing. All of them. They're just. We wouldn't, like Jason said, we wouldn't be here without them. We would just be still kicking around, complaining that we can't be in the boys club. I wanted to point out something up top here, Jason.
Oh yeah, sure.
Brian Shaw, I hear you're not wanting to clutter your collection. I found even though I had space for more collectibles, I was starting to not like how the space looked cluttered. Good to leave some breathing room. That is very true. So when you have an amazing piece, it's always, I find that it's nice to give it some breathing room. A beautiful piece needs to be like appreciated and not cluttered with a whole bunch of stuff around it. You just lose it, Like my Falcon is dead center in the middle of my room. There's nothing around it. And my Slave One is up high and by itself. And the Sandcrawler, eventually, they're my three favorite pieces. I don't know if I'll have any other pieces that I love more than those three. It needs breathing room, like you said. Yes,
definitely breathing room.
Correct. Yeah.
That's one thing I'm very big on. Chris, you know this. I do a lot of quality over quantity, and I space a lot of my pieces out as well. This was an interesting one. So I can't speak for others, but I don't ever use clear coat on any of my models.
I
ever.
don't either. No. There's a big reason why, Jason, because so most of these paints, if you prepare the surface right, if you prime the surface right, and if you lay the paint on right, they won't chip. You'd have to really gouge them to chip them. You don't really need a clear coat. Plus, the clear coat will dull a lot of colors. It will take away a lot of your weathering. It'll take away your staining. It will make a lot of. It's happened to me a couple times, like with my Sandcrawler. I lost a lot of detail on the wand, so I had to go back and redo the whole thing. I personally don't clear coat neither acrylic nor enamel. No.
Yeah.
Unless you do a base coat and you clear coat it, because you can actually weather it, and then if you don't like it, you can kind of go back and take some of that off, and not take away your base coat.
I can clay coat that snow, brother.
I'm ready to chuck those freaking snow things in the garbage. If I didn't pay so much money for them, I definitely would be thinking of something different. And don't get me wrong, the base is beautiful. Yeah. It's well done. It's just I know it's going to require a lot of layers. So, and I'm fine with that.
And that, we've had this conversation multiple times, but that goes back to, and I think, was it Sean who mentioned it about, Brian Shaw mentioned about cost, right? So one of the things me and Chris are talking about today is, so Chris will take on commissions, and it's not something that I do for various reasons. But one of the things Chris always has a difficult time with is, you're commissioning things for people that you know and have a rapport with and respect, and vice versa. So there's a bit of a friendship there, right? And you want to be conscientious of not charging somebody you consider a friend, or at least have a good rapport with, too much money. And that's always this inner argument Chris tends to have in himself. At least I notice as a friend from the outside looking in. And I always say, well, Chris, look, I see where you're coming from, where you don't want to charge somebody $3,000. And you want to give them a deal, but you have to factor in, look, if you need $200 worth of snow, it's not just the model kit in your time. It's also the resources, the paint, the thinner, the mixer, all that stuff that comes on that you don't think of. So if you're spending 4 hours and $300 on snow alone, that right there is, that's a big chunk. So when people always get confused as to like, why does this stuff cost so much? As we talked about it earlier, and I'm only using Brian as an example because he pointed it out specifically, was chasing down the kits, right? Even where I cut corners and I didn't pay for the full kits, I was buying the trees. That still took me hours of my time to find those, track them down, purchase them, etc. So, you're talking about sometimes the equivalent of 2 40-hour work weeks. Then you're assembling it, you're painting it, it's going to cure, you're using all these resources that eventually run out. If you're spraying something a certain color, a mixture,
tools that you have,
tools,
like belt sanders you've bought,
things that like tools that have replacement parts that once it's utilized, you have to buy a new this or a new that. Yeah, there's a lot to it.
There is. Grime coat stuff. So I think Scott is the Falcon. It's called misting, where you put all your base colors down, and then you mist it with the base color. I'm sorry, you put your base color down. You do your individual colored squares and rectangles or whatever the case may be, and then you mist it with the original color, which will blend all of will blend them together and make them not stand out so much. But what you don't want to do is do the whole thing, put all the weathering on, and then mist it with this grime color. You want to go 2/3 before you do your weathering, and then do the final third of misting. That way you don't lose your weathering and staining and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If that doesn't make a lot of sense, if you just hit me up, I'll talk to you about it. It's a technique that I learned from a bunch of people. So
no, it might be fun to get into next, Chris. Not next as of now, but next time we jump on and talk shop is just that, like tools, supplies. Not. I mean, everybody uses a large variation of different tools, but the basics. Like if you're going to get started and you want to get comfortable and get your hands wet and get the feel for what it's like, just go over the basics. Like, hey, this is what your typical toolkit should start off with. There's stuff where there's people working with some amazing technology to make these things, but right off the bat, just some of the basics that you can start off with that will really get you all the way there and get you a completed model. We can chat about some of that and go over some of those details.
Toothpicks, that's my number one. That's my number one. Like gluing things, I'll use a toothpick and just take a little glue and put it in a spot or run it along a seam or something. That I go through hundreds of toothpicks. So buy toothpicks. But I like your Mcquarrie.
Oh, you like my camera? Yeah, I changed it. I've been changing it lately just to give it a little flair every night when I'm on. Because you know what it is with the reason why, but I haven't been on camera much. And because of that, I've been changing up the
because you're so
avatar.
damn ugly.
It's tough, man. So yeah, I've been changing the images up just for the fun of it.
Oh, yeah. Why is mine the same as yours?
Because you have to go in once I change the avatar. You now have to go in and.
Oh, so this is the Rogue One avatar.
Yeah, like when I did the, for example, when we did the, what's it called? The See Now You're Different. So you can go in and pick. So when we did the print show, when we were talking about the Matt Ferguson, I put this on it.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but I think that's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
We bored a lot of people enough. So, I mean, I'm just kidding. I love talking about this stuff. I'm fascinated. I'm hoping that it gets me back into the swing of things because these snow dioramas are draining the life out of me. I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. So, yeah. But honestly, I'm looking forward to doing that ATST, and we'll talk about that in depth a lot more once you and I both have one finished.
Nice. Thanks for the feedback, guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah. you have any questions, join us again on the next show. I'm sure we're going to try to have John Simmons on. We were going to try this week, but I didn't ask him because my work schedule got crazy. We had him on before. Was it once or twice? I think it was
we were
twice.
on twice, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to try to do a morning one with him. Maybe some other people as well. We talked about Stewart coming on. He has a fascinating project that is just insane that we'll have on one day. And we'll have group therapy Friday night,
Group
which
therapy Friday night.
I will not be at because I work too damn much lately. And have a good night, guys.
Have a good night. Thanks for joining. Thanks for all the kind feedback, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.